Welcome back to the Hybrid Zone where strength meets endurance. I'm your host, Yara Tway, and today we have an extraordinary guest joining us. If you've ever wondered what it takes to complete triathlons from sprint distances to grueling Ironman, then you're here for a treat. Our guest today is none like other Coach Melina Thompson-Catchis, a well-known and respected member of the UAE triathlon community. She's not just a phenomenal triathlete, but also an inspiring coach, a dedicated volunteer, and most importantly, a mother of three. With more than 4 former Ironman finishes under her belt and more than 21 completions of 70.3 distances, you're a powerhouse in the triathlon world. Impressively, even qualified for world championships over 3 times, and correct me if I'm wrong. As a former swimmer, Coach Melina has not just left her love for the water behind. You've completed an ultra swim across Kalamata Bay, covering a staggering 30 kilometers, and earned a podium place in the 10-kilometer distance at the Oceanman World Finals. Currently, you lead BR's Youth Academy programs and you coach adult triathletes from complete beginners to seasoned triathletes chasing world qualifications. So without further ado, let's dive in and welcome Coach Melina. Happy to have you.
Thank you. That's quite the introduction. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I can live up to it. But thanks for having me. When you messaged a few weeks back, there was really no way I could say no to your invite. Having met you in January, I think in Jeddah.
Yeah.
And all the help you gave me while I was there for the youth camp. And I think even beyond we were both there for work really, but even beyond that, there was a bit of a connection between us. So yeah, there was no way I would be saying no to your invite. So thank you very much for having me and your very kind introduction.
Likewise, I think, Mel, the reason why I've always really wanted you to be part of this show is because you've inspired me personally. I still remember the very first Ironman I did. It was in Muscat. It was actually last February. And literally there was very few people, literally a handful on that race course. And I was really one of the very last finishers. And I still remember having you stand at that finish line waiting for me, despite the scorching heat. And you're like, go, go, go. And I keep watching that video over and over again. I'm like, oh, look, this is Mel's voice. Oh, look, this is Melina. So it has put me in this direction of, oh, look, this is such an inspiring community and supportive. Waiting there for hours for me just to finish has been one of the most monumentous things I've ever felt. And it was really genuinely heartfelt. Like there is people like you out there that supports and helps and makes it remarkable. Like this is your first time, it's a big deal. Make a big deal out of it. Don't take that medal off your chain. So it's still back there, and yeah, it was really an inspiring moment. So thank you very much for being there all the way and supporting.
No, you're more than welcome in that sense, but like you said, it's your first one. The first one is special for everyone, whether it goes well or whether it doesn't go well. It is really special, and it sets you up for the experience, sets you up for whether you stay in the sport or not. And I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't remember their first one. And I had in the same way that I guess I was there for you at that first one, I had somebody that did that role for me. And ultimately, in this community, it's all about paying it forward. So I'm glad I was there, able to yell at you as you were coming down the finish line.
Go, go, go. Yeah, that last stretch was definitely difficult, and you have to pretend like you're smiling for the camera, but inside there you're dying. Speaking of which, Mel, do you remember your very first Ironman or half Ironman, and what was it like, and when was it?
My very well, I started tries when I was 16. Did them until I was 21, until I had an accident, and then I had a 16-year break out of the sport. And then I came back at age 36, and my first triathlon back was actually the full came before the 70.3.
All in. Full
yeah, I mean it was Challenge Roth was the first one, and like I kind of got in. It was a fluke that I got in. and you don't say no to Challenge Roth,
No,
really,
right.
if you get an invite for that. And I remember the day I got the email from Challenge Roth telling me I had won the lottery and I got a slot. That particular morning, I had gone for a 5K run, my first, sorry, not 3K run. And it was my first run in like years. And I think I had to stop about 5 times in that 3K run and walk. But when that email came through, it was like, okay, I have 163 days to get ready. I'll get ready. Yeah, and Roth, for those that don't know what Roth is, it's one of the oldest full iron distance events. It's kind of where it started in terms of Europe. Obviously, Kona is where it all kicked off in Hawaii, but for Europe, the birthplace is Roth. It's where the 8 hour mark was broken first, so it's a relatively fast course, and it's just an insane event. Everything people say about the race, about the crowds, the organization, everything, it's true. And until you go, it's kind of hard to relay that to other people. So it was quite an experience to do the first one. I was lucky to be able to do it there with 2 other friends. And to say I was nervous in the days before, like, I mean, I was practically catatonic. We went down to see the swim course, and I just kind of froze, and I was looking at it going, I'm not sure about this. This seems to be too much of an undertaking. But yeah, come race day, you just kind of get going. And Roth, like, you get in the water, there's cannons and hot air balloons going off as you start, and it's a very fairly narrow canal, so you've got crowds literally the entire swim. So every breath you're taking, you can see the crowds. The bike is incredible with Solar Hill, where basically the crowds open up, so only one bike can get through. And like the first time you come around, you're like, oh my God, please don't touch my bike. Please don't touch my bike. Yeah, it's amazing. The run's the run.
I think we agree there is a consensus there.
Yeah,
If you know
definitely not
anyone, if
my.
you don't know what Coach Mel's like on the run, just don't talk there on the run. You would definitely hear words you wouldn't want to.
But you know, it's only like, it's not. I'll still smile.
Yeah,
Mostly I'm fine.
supportive.
But even the good thing about the run, once you come off the bike, as much as run is not my favorite, there is a relief when the bike finishes, because there's always that concern that something might happen on the bike course and you can't fix your bike. And to travel and spend all that money and energy and not be able to finish a race, is unthinkable, really. So when the bike finishes, you know that you'll crawl if you have to, but you'll get to the finish. So there is that, okay, I've got 42k ahead of me, but I know I'm gonna get there. And the finish line was incredible. Like, you get into this stadium, purpose-built stadium. It's like 300 meters that you have to run in that stadium. And just the crowds are just amazing, absolutely amazing. And I remember crossing the finish line, and you don't know whether to laugh or cry, really, like, because they're both from a, oh my God, like, thank God it's done. I can stop now. But then there's the relief, and then there's the realization that, oh my God, I've actually done this, and I'm still in one piece, because you build it up in your head to be this massive thing, and it is a massive thing. So that there is almost that sense of disbelief that, oh, I actually did this, because the reality is, unlike some of the other distances, you're never going to cover that distance in training. So you genuinely
Very
step onto that start line, not really sure that, you know, you can cover that distance. But, you know, I've done 5 now, so, you know, it hasn't put me off in that sense. So it can't be, you know, it can't be that bad. But
So
yeah.
your very recent one was Hamburg, and what I do know that you did sustain an injury before that. So maybe if you'd walk us through before Hamburg and now ramping up to New Zealand, and how does it
Yeah.
feel? And again, out to the audience, exactly what is it like prior to Hamburg and now up to New Zealand?
Hamburg. So I signed up for Hamburg last year on my birthday as a present to me, as you do. Sort of been going through quite a few life changes, let's say, in the last couple of years. And as with any sort of transition in life, there you go, you know, it's ups and downs. And to say that I've kind of been feeling a little bit lost the last couple of years, at some points probably be a bit of an understatement. So I took the decision to sign up for this challenge, just for me, to really push myself, to kind of to give me a bit of a focus when, to an extent, the rest of my life has seemed very uncertain. Having this to anchor myself on was really helpful. I did Salala in September, and I fell off the bike. There was a mechanical issue with the bike. I fell off the bike and I damaged my ankle. And we discovered there's a bit of a chronic issue in the ankle that we're not sure whether surgery or not would fix it, but at the time surgery wasn't an option. So we had to manage the training for Hamburg very carefully. I started with running on an anti-gravity treadmill to begin with, which was amazing. Like I was
Tell me
holding
about it.
speed, like, and my heart rate wasn't going up, and he was just looking at it going, oh, if
Miraculous.
only I could lose 40% of my body weight, clearly I'd be a lot faster, which is, you know, it's not viable. But we, you know, kind of managed with lots of anti-gravity runs and then walk runs. The storm happened, the big storm happened in Dubai in April, which damaged the anti-gravity treadmill. So then I had no choice but to actually start running on a proper treadmill, and it was all walk runs. The swim was going okay. I mean, the swim was, not to sound all, the swim was never a concern. The bike is, you know, I knew I could get through it, but I didn't have the time I had in the past to get properly ready. The last time I did an Ironman was a full Ironman was before COVID, and when I wasn't working full time. I was a stay-at-home mum at the time, so to an extent I had a little bit more time on my hands than I had this year. So yeah, in the run up to Hamburg, it was trying to focus on the bike to try and get as strong as I could with that, and get through the run. And the strategy was from the start, get off the bike and stick to a 4-minute run, 1-minute walk. Even if I felt good to run longer, the plan was to just stay with the 4-1 strategy and see how long I could hold it. On race day, not very long actually. In the end, the leg was quite, the foot was quite tired from the bike ride, so it didn't last very long. So there was a lot more walking on race day than I had planned, but I finished, and ultimately that was the goal that I wanted. I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do it. I was able to balance the training alongside, you know, the kids and work and everything else. and ultimately, I think, may sound a bit cheesy, but the Ironman really isn't race day. The Ironman is in the training when you try and balance everything else out, and in the run up to your race. Yeah. So.
And now with New Zealand coming up, does it feel the same, or it's just that different feels because it's the World Championship?
New Zealand, to an extent at the moment, is still a little bit like I've got 5 months to go. So we have time. New Zealand is a 70.3. It's the 70.3 World Champs. There is an element, and I don't think anybody who's done a full Ironman would disagree with me on this. So I in no way am I trying to come across as arrogant or whatever. Once you've done a full, 70.3 doesn't feel as big a deal. It's half a day. It's not a whole day thing.
Yeah. It's pretty much like people doing the Olympic distance and they're like, oh, super sprint. That's just like, yeah, it's
exactly. So in that sense, it's not the aim for New Zealand is to go and just enjoy the experience of being at the World Champs, have as good a race as I can have for me. The injury is still there. Actually, I saw the surgeon last week, and surgery is not an option. So it's a chronic issue that I'm going to have to deal with now. So I just need to manage it as best as I can. Go to New Zealand, have as good a race as I can for me, and just enjoy the experience. Like, it'll be my second World Champs. I've qualified 3 times, but it's the second time I'm able to go. And the experience is unlike any other 70.3 you will do. Plus it's New Zealand. I've never been. I've been told it's a pretty awesome place. And to be able to go and travel with friends, it'll be pretty cool experience, actually. I'm sure. So all I need is to get to the finish line, enjoy that finish line as best I can, and then explore New Zealand and everything it has to give. So training at the moment, it's only just started. I've had about 5 weeks off since Hamburg. Training literally is only just started again, and the focus will be on the swim and the bike and managing the run. I'm kind of taking the view that, the leg lasted 15 Ks after 180 K on the bike. So this is 21 K off a 90 K bikes. So in theory, I should be good. As long as I'm sensible in the run up with training, I'm sure it will be good.
I hope so. No, I love the proportionality. I'm like, do you know what? 90 off the bike, 21, I'll be fine. I've done worse. But speaking of which, Mel, I think for everyone, there's definitely a goal to why they do Ironman distances or triathlons in general. Was it for you beating your previous scores, or is it the stories that you have to tell, or is it the experiences? Is it you lead by example? So what is it for you, especially when it comes to long distances and triathlons?
It's a good question. The why kind of changes. Like the first time I did a full Ironman, and probably I'd say the 2 or 3 that came immediately after, the why was very different. I was a stay-at-home mum. I'd never actually envisaged myself in that role, not being a mother, but being a stay-at-home mom. But life kind of, the way it brought things, we moved from the UK, we moved from my husband's job. So yeah, I became a stay-at-home mum, and it got to a point, especially once the kids started school, I needed something like just for me, to kind of, literally just for me to be Melina again, not someone's mom, not someone's wife, just me, just for me. And it also gave me a little bit of a focus to my fitness. So, after 3 kids, I wanted to get back into some sort of fitness. And just training for training's sake just didn't seem enough. So that gave me a bit of a focus. That was the anchor point to the training. I always said back when I used to do tries when I was younger that I wanted to do one before I was 40. So I was 36 when I did the first one. And it was just to see what I could do, you know, when you've grown up into sport and then suddenly you have a long break, like I had a 16-year break, and you know, doing stuff that I used to do when in my 20s was literally like flooring me and I couldn't keep up. You just kind of want to recapture that a little bit. So yeah, that was the initial one. This time, like I said earlier, this time it was a little bit different. With all the life changes that I've had in the last couple of years, it weirdly it was a bit of a safety net. It's what I know. It's what I kind of find like weirdly with the Ironman, there's so much time you need to find time and make time for the training, because obviously the longer the distance, the more training you have to put in. And it kind of forced me to structure my life and find routine and actually find time for me. It's, you know, with 3 kids, a full-time job, and you know everything else that's going around, and I'm not the only parent out there that has to deal with any of this stuff. So in that sense, there's nothing special about it. But in trying to find 6 hours to go out on a bike ride, it was 6 hours for me, you know, and it was 6 hours for me to try and figure out life, or realize that I haven't got life figured out, whichever way you want to look at it. Yeah, so it was a very different one. I'm not gonna lie, I've wanted to break 12 hours for a while, and when I signed up last year for Hamburg, that was the target. I wanted to break 12 hours, and for the swim and the bike, it was achievable to put myself in a position to do that. But the reality of the injury and the run, and to an extent, you know, the fact that I didn't have as much time available for training meant it didn't happen this time. But it didn't actually matter. I think the last full that I did, I went in trying to break 12, and when it didn't happen, it actually really bothered me. This time it was like, it doesn't matter. I can try again another time, and it didn't detract at all from what the day meant to me. To be able to finish after the last few years was a big deal for me.
I can't agree much. I mean, definitely, it does give you some sort of it's not a calling, but like you feel very different when people say, "Well, this is what I want to be beating," or "These are the scores that I need." But then it's a different vibe there. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because you're enjoying yourself, and again, it really depends on what timeline you're put. So yeah, I can't agree much, and obviously I have not much experience to, you know, to give my own opinion, but as I mentioned, it really depends on you know the timeline you're put and what has happened prior to the race. So but Milena, you did mention that one of the stumbling blocks is basically how pricey that sport can be. And you know, the last episode we tackled on budgeting, and especially for people my age, you know, we're still trying to figure things out, haven't really, you know, locked in a full-time job yet. But then we enjoy the sport, but we do know it comes at a cost. So with these many experiences under your belt, what is this one advice you'd give to people start off with that sport and finding it very pricey? Is it the expensive bike that makes you fast? Is it the gear and, you know, the show off, etc.? Well, what is it that you have to say about that?
It's no, you're right. It's not the cheapest sport out there. And to an extent, we try not to think about how much we spend, how much we spend on it. There, like, you look, at the end of the day, you don't need the big expensive bike. You can do it on a road bike. You don't have to have a TT bike. You can do it on a budget ish, and the ish comes more with it really depends on what you're wanting out of the experience. And to be honest, everybody starts out, we all start out at the lower ends. And I think my first ones were with a mountain bike,
Oh God, yeah.
the local races, and then gradually it just kind of builds from there. And to an extent, I mean, we talk about sacrifices. Like when people do any kind of challenge, whether it's endurance, long or short, whatever, because that's something I want to come back to, because something you mentioned about your experience. At the end of the day, we talk about sacrifices that, you sacrifice your going out, you sacrifice, I don't know, enjoying certain foods, whatever it is that you sacrifice. We're not actually sacrificing. I don't see it that way. Like, I have a choice, and I make the choice to go to bed at 9 p.m. because I have to get up at 4. So I'm going to ride my bike at 5 because it's too hot outside. Because I don't want to ride on my turbo trainer indoors. So I'll, so it's not actually a sacrifice. It's just a choice. It's a conscious, disciplined choice. And to an extent, it's the same with the finances. Now, the issue that we have in this region, we have a lot of triathlons, depending on which country in the region you're based. Here in the UAE, pretty much from October until April, there's probably an event every weekend that you can do. So you don't necessarily have to go and seek out the big events like Ironman brand or challenge brand or whatever. And obviously, but there are some costs to the race organizers, whether it's a big event or a small event, or a local event, and those need to be covered. So you can be careful and pick what races you want to do, and it doesn't have to be the big ones. But once you're in the sport, you kind of get a little bit carried away. And like I said, it's a choice. My social life probably revolves more around the sport than going out and doing other stuff. But the sport itself has given me a lot. Like, I've traveled to lots of places. I've, you said yourself, like, you got to see Muscat on your bike. It's a pretty cool way to see Muscat on your bike. Because under normal circumstances, if the roads weren't shut for the race, you wouldn't be able to ride on any of those roads that we did. You doing the race in Muscat meant you and I got to spend more time together. You get to meet so many people. So yes, it's an expensive sport, but you can sort of cut corners ish. If you go long, and if you go branded, that's where the expense comes in, and you don't have to. And to just make one point, is when I was listening to you talking about your own experiences, and I think in episode 1, I think, of the podcast, and you made a comment, I think something along the lines that you don't see yourself as an endurance athlete because you don't see yourself as going long, that you don't necessarily want to go full Ironman, or triathlon isn't just Ironman. Yes, okay, it's kind of up there and people, you know, but it's not. A super sprint hurts a lot.
Yeah.
If you do the super sprint properly, it hurts. It's like full on from, you know, from gun to finish. Ironman, it's about pacing yourself really and getting your nutrition right. So triathlon is triathlon, whether you do a super sprint or whether you do a full Ironman or an ultraman, whatever. Triathlon is triathlon, and there is no such thing. Sorry, and I'm getting on my high horse there for a bit. So there's like people, and we need to stop saying it's only a sprint and it's only a super sprint. There's no only. It's still triathlon. And if you look at the super sprint, for example, you know, for example, for me, a super sprint is about 37 minutes. You have other people that are doing a super sprint in an hour. If you relate that duration to running or to swimming, for example, that's endurance. Like the longest swim event in the Olympics, it's going to take like, I don't know, 12, 15 minutes, whatever, you know? So we're out there for an hour for the shortest distance there is. So it's still endurance. Yes, okay. Ironman has it's a status thing. I do get that, but you're still a triathlete, whether you do a super sprint or whether you do long. And for me, yes, it can feel like a bit of an exclusive club at times, but if you rock up to a local race and there's nothing above Olympics, so the usually local events will have a super sprint, and Olympic distance. That's what most local events will offer. There's, you know, you don't distinguish between the Olympic people and the super sprint. Everyone's there together. So the community's one. So whether you're doing a super sprint or whether you're going long, you are a triathlete and you do belong.
Yeah, I
Like
think
whether
yeah.
you feel you belong or not, that's a different story. But you do belong. You've done a triathlon, no matter what the distance. You do belong, and even if you do a relay, you do belong. And for me, that's the thing I love most about the sport. The performance is one thing, and the performance is very personal. And I've been lucky in some of the achievements that I've been able to reach. But I wouldn't put myself as a high performer. I'm an average, middle of the pack triathlete. I happen to be a good swimmer, which helps me. But the community is what's there for me. That's the big pull. I've been like, triathlon took me to Saudi for the first time. I've traveled to lots of places because of triathlon. I've met people because of triathlon. And it's not the performance that's got me there. It's the community that's got me there.
Yeah, and I
So
think
you do belong in triathlon.
yeah, that's a myth we need to debunk because everyone would look down upon you like, oh, you did a super sprint. I've done an Ironman. Oh, you've done a half Ironman. Oh, I've done I don't know what. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's where I felt a bit self-conscious and that people are sort of, you know, running off the schools and distances, but all I'm trying to do here is maintain a good balance and keep myself healthy.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a sport that keeps you healthy. Perhaps maybe we could want to touch on the strength bits, S&C and
Yeah.
triathlons. And I mean, we know how a triathlete looks like in their physique, and we know how a strength person looks like in their physique if it's just solely done. But then if we merge it, and I'm sure I've seen lots in S&C and how different it's done in triathlons compared to people who solely do S&C. So do you think that people who only belong or come from weightlifting / CrossFit communities could join us in the triathlon community and vice versa, or one would cause harm to another?
If you stick, I mean, I'll kind of put the disclaimer out there. I've never been, I wouldn't say I've really gone into the strength community. I got to be honest, the older I get, and you know I'm going to be 45 next week, I'm starting to gravitate a bit more towards that, and honestly, like seeing you doing high rocks, I'm like, I really want to try that out. And like, I keep waiting for them to announce Dubai or Doha or something. And so far they haven't announced it for 2025. Anyway,
Plus one.
so, you know, it works both ways. I've pulled you in to try, you're going to pull me that way. But so just putting that out there, that I've never truly been into the strength community. So I'm giving an outsider's point of view. Yes, the two can coexist. You do, at least for triathlon, I can't talk about the other one, but at least for triathlon, you do need strength. You absolutely do need strength. Your body is, and you need it if you're going to go short, because you need that explosiveness. You need it if you're going to go long, because you need that muscular endurance to cope with not just race day, but to cope with the load of training. Yeah. It's not just about your lungs. Your muscles need to be able to cope. Your joints, your tendons, your ligaments, everything needs to be able to cope with the load that you're gonna throw on it. And you know, couple that with all the research. I mean, that research has been there for years. It's just coming to the forefront now that as we age, in terms of maintaining our health, we have to build in weight training. And we're not talking heavy weights necessarily. We're not talking bodybuilding or anything like that. There is that misconception that, oh, my shape is going to change and that kind of stuff. It can change, but it doesn't have to. From a triathlon point of view, really you need more functional strength. So relate the stuff you do in the gym and the weights you lift with what you're doing in your sport. You know, so pull-ups and push-ups for the swim, single leg stuff for the run, because ultimately the run is a single leg activity. But you know, we're all doing squats, both legs on the ground. Really, this is one leg, but no point during the run do you have both legs on the ground, unless you stop to, you know, chat to people, or you stop at an aid station like myself. So there is definitely a place for it. And for many of my athletes now, like I will say to them, particularly if we are in the off season, if they have to miss a session, I would rather they miss a swim, bike, run, but not skip the strength, because the strength is key. Now, from a strength point of view, and again, I emphasize I'm coming at this as an outsider. It really depends on what you want. Marrying up the strength with some cardio stuff is good from a health point of view. Cross training is always good for the body. But it depends on what your goal is, and that's what you have to keep in mind. You know, whatever your goal is, then you focus either on strength more and bring the cardio in as support, or if your focus is the endurance, then you bring the strength in as support. So you need to pick one, so to speak.
Just following up, do you think you'd integrate some strength or different weightlifting exercise or activities now being part of, you know, as you mentioned, I think with age, it's very important for us to maintain, let's say, the muscle mass that we have, and we definitely lose it with age. So I think when it comes to that, it comes to 2 points. It boils down to, number one is that you've mentioned the exercises that we need to incorporate, and secondly is the diet. So perhaps increase you know, more protein intake, etc. So is that something that you're integrating in your daily routine? Is it part of your diet where you have to incorporate more protein? Is it different now that you're, you know, above the 40 mark? And You'd want to, yeah.
Nice save, nice save. You didn't mention the number, so I'm happy with
It's just the age group now.
that. Yeah, look, the strength thing is definitely more important now, and I've seen it obviously with it's even more important now because I have effectively a chronic issue to manage in my ankle. So I need to make sure that joint and all the others are able to deal with what I'm going to put them through. And I think that's for me, it's primarily that to try and maintain or stay as healthy as I can to be able to do whatever challenges I fancy. I sort of take my fancy and keep the lifestyle that that I enjoy. In terms of, like I said, the research that's out there, I need to start increasing the weights that I'm actually lifting. So I am actually building more muscle. It's harder to do that as we get older. But it's also, whilst as a coach, as a sports science graduate, I know the theory, I know the research. Applying it, because this, like I said, in terms of the strength, it's not something I've immersed myself before, and it is different. Take me down to a pool, put me in poolside, I know exactly what to do. Feel at home. And even with the run, to an extent, it's the same. The gym is not the same. If I walk into a gym and there's, I don't know, say like CrossFitters or whatever, or bodybuilders, I'm not going to lie, I will feel a little bit apprehensive about going there and starting. So it's a good way to start, I think, is classes. Especially if it's something you've never done before. There are plenty of classes in every gym, because technique is important, because ultimately you're going there to do strength from a health point of view, to prevent injury or to rehab from an injury. If your technique's wrong, you're just making things worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, starting with a class or working with somebody there. And like I said, I'm a coach myself, but I quite enjoy going to a class. Somebody's there to tell me exactly what to do. It's taking the thinking out, and at the same time, I'm getting to meet other people. But it's me going back to social. Hardly surprising, I guess, for them. But I get to meet other people that either are also at the same part in their strength journey, or even if they're ahead, you just meet somebody else at the gym. So like next time you walk in the gym, perhaps it's not going to feel as an alien, as much of an alien environment. But I am starting to find I can see the challenge. I can see the challenge in the strength. I used to do a little bit more strength when pre-COVID. After COVID, I've not been in the gym as much. And I was limited in terms of the amount of strength I could do in the lead up to the big swim because of a shoulder injury. But I can see the attraction, and it's a different challenge. It's a different challenge. But you can definitely see where your lungs are able to cope with something, but your legs are saying, your muscles are saying, no, you're not. They're not as strong as your lungs are. So, and the disparity between the two will ultimately affect your performance.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what you said. We keep signing up for new challenges just to see how we're gonna take it. And speaking of which, I signed up for Oceanman. It's gonna happen in a month's time. I'm excited, slightly nervous, but the swim is the swim. Yeah, I mean, you've inspired me for that. So I think the whole gist here is that, I mean, there's no harm in trying new things and new challenges as long as we're training to it correctly. Technique is queen. We say that all the time because intensity, when there's intensity, there's definitely injuries that you could sustain. It's been a very lovely chat, and time flies. So let's have a quick fire round. What's your favorite
Okay.
triathlon discipline and why?
Discipline. Oh my God, that's an easy question.
Well, duh.
Um, swimming. Swimming, absolutely swimming. That's
Uh,
my first
Well,
love.
obviously I won't follow up with a why, but why is it your favorite? Is it because you grew up swimming, or it's just you feel
Um, it was my first sport. It was my first love. I love the feeling I have being in the water. Even if it's in a pool and I'm just, doing laps and laps. The weightlessness of the that you feel in the water, the sound of the water itself. For me, it's quite meditative, and I think compared to the other two disciplines, it's also the only one that forces you to control your breath. We don't really think about our breathing on the bike and the run. You just breathe. It really forces you to control your breath. So I find there's a lot more control. I can bring myself inwards, a lot more. Yeah, that's.
agreed. Pre-race rituals or superstitions?
Oh, um, I
But
don't know.
post-race, I
You
know, but
touched
pre-race.
you touched on it. I think in your first one, priority going to the toilet. Um, that's the number one concern, really, especially if it's a really long race. Like we spend the entire pre-race trying to go, and spend the rest of the race trying not to go. But no, like it depends. It depends on the race. Like I genuinely, like in the first few full distances I did, I was very focused and also very nervous. It's kind of hard to tell which one was which, to the extent that I didn't really engage with other people. The more I've raced, and this time as well in Hamburg, it was my first full distance since 2018. And it was a completely different experience. I was just very relaxed. And yeah, to sound a bit cheesy or cliche, I was just there for the moment. And in that particular moment, when we walked into transition, for me, it was, do you know what? I'm here with 6 of my friends. We're all here to do this. I was excited. And the nerves only kicked in a couple of minutes, I think, before the swim, when I actually started lining up. So no, not many, really, I have to say.
I think the bottom thing is definitely the one, and you'd only know right before the race, otherwise you wouldn't think about it. One piece
Yeah.
of equipment you can't live without.
For a triathlon,
Yeah,
the
for
bike, I guess. The list is quite extensive in a triathlon that you need. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell because there's 3 disciplines.
but even
Um,
in general, like for me, it's the foam roller. I don't think I can survive without it. I need to foam roll all the time, but I could
um,
rent a bike. I really don't care, but the foam roller.
Yeah, see, I listened to you say that actually, and I do get the logistics of renting a bike, but there's nothing like riding your own bike and being fitted properly on it. And
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
like
know. I guess it's a hard one to answer because triathlon has quite the list of equipment, I guess.
packing list is endless. I'll tell you that.
Insane, yeah. Like I mean, going for a swim race. It was very it was very surreal. Like, oh God, I don't have enough stuff. Like, where's the
Agreed.
bike?
The
Just like,
lightest thing ever.
yeah, you don't have excess baggage to worry about, do you? It's like I just need a suitcase. So yeah, it's kind of hard to pick, I think, on that one.
So, best advice you've ever received.
Best advice I've ever received.
Yeah.
Um, just race the day that you're given. Um, we all prep for the perfect race. We don't always get the perfect race. It can be weather-wise or, you know, luck or whatever. It just race the day you're given. You don't know what you're going to wake up to. Like I remember before the big swim in Kalamata, we were told the weather would be really good for the first 6 hours of the day, and that it would get choppy and windy in the second part of the day, but the wind would be in such a way that actually it'd be pushing us towards the finish, and there was nothing like that on race day. It
Beautiful.
was choppy and against us from pretty much start to finish. I did the full in Maastricht in 2017, and I had an accident on the bike. I had a puncture. My aero bars came loose, so I didn't have a good day that day. Salala, I came off the bike, barely managed to finish. So just race the day you're given, and when you cross the finish line, the goal is always to finish. If you finish and you finish well and you're happy and you're healthy and okay, that's bonus number 2. If you finish within a good time, that's bonus number 3. But if the time doesn't happen, why didn't it happen? And if it's outside of your control,
Yeah.
just reframe your day. We all start with goal number 1. Goal number 1 after the swim might become unachievable. So
And it's a blessing truly to, you know, come out of it as just one piece and safe and sound. I mean, we've seen the accidents that do happen. And I can't agree much, Melina. I mean, we all know that maybe triathlons can be counted as the least, let's say, impact slash injury sport, compared to some of the rest that we might know. Obviously not the bike, but the swim and the run. I mean, the totality isn't that bad as some of the sports, but at the end of the day, it's a blessing to come out of it one piece. And as you mentioned, if it's out of your control, it's out of your control. You've done your best.
yeah.
And I've just recently seen the one in Spain where Sam Laidlaw, he was penalized, and then he actually did not stop, and he I think he protested and it got validated, and then they changed the rules completely. So it's just, I don't know, like you change the rules as you go, perhaps. How would you comment to that? Perhaps you have,
Well, I mean, I did. For those that follow me online, I did.
yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I disagree with that. If you get a penalty, even if you think the penalty was done erroneously, just serve it. You're not above. Nobody is above the rules. Serve the penalty,
Mm-hmm.
and then finish your race and go and appeal. And if the appeal stands, then they'll give you your time back.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't, and obviously this is based on what's out there on social media and whatever and what have you, but if he didn't think it was the right call to give him the penalty, it's not for him to choose to serve it or not. Nobody should be above the rules in that sense. And ultimately the rules are there for a reason.
Yeah.
So if an age grouper, if I get DQ'd, basically, whether I actually finish the race or not, effectively, I'm a DNF. I did not finish the race. I do not qualify to be on the podium. I'm not going to place. My time won't even register. So I don't see why, just because he is the world champion, that he can bypass that. I understand the business argument for why this was done.
Yeah.
And I understand, that Ironman is a business and all that kind of stuff. That I get. But if that's how if you feel the world champion is above the rules, then do you know what? Make it a lot simpler and say a world champion doesn't have to validate. You won it this year, you're automatically in the next year.
Valid.
And that I have no problem with. You're the world champion. You've proven you're the world champion. okay, you're in at the next one. You've got it that way. That I get. The fact that they've, you know, the rules say he was basically a DNF and they give it to him that way for a business case, I don't agree with at all.
Yeah, very valid. And I think rules are rules, you mentioned. Being organizers, we put things for your safety at the you know,
Yeah,
and to be fair for all. So that's that for sure. Um, I think again, as I mentioned, you know, the holistic view of, you know, the sport is that it's a community base, is that the support that you get, is that you play it safe, you make sure that everyone is well and okay. I think I've never really seen a sport that people support you all the way, regardless of when you're finishing or how you're finishing. So I think overall, if you're out there listening and you're scared to, again, fearful of taking the very first step to your first triathlon, regardless of the distance, go for it. I think,
absolutely.
Mel, you can't agree much. Even if it was a relay, you are a triathlete regardless. Um,
Absolutely. And what you just said, and this is one of the things I love about the sport the most, there are very few sports out there that the average ordinary age grouper competes on the same course as the elites, as the world champion. And we talk about Ironman, and it's not the be all and end all, no, by any stretch. However, one of the best things about the Ironman is the last hour. So there's 17 hours to finish a race normally. There's some variations depending on courses, but there's 17 hours to finish a race. At the moment, the pros and the top age groupers are breaking 8 hours.
Crazy.
So, and they get celebrated, obviously, especially if there's a world record or a course record. It's amazing the celebration that happens for the pros. But actually, the celebration the pros get is nothing compared to the celebration that the last finisher gets. The person that comes in at 16 hours and 59 seconds gets an insane welcome to that finish line. There's fireworks, and the best thing about it is you get the person who won it hours ago, who's probably, had a shower, had dinner, had a nap, whatever. They come back and they present the last finisher with the medal. And I don't think there is another sport that does that. And if you go and watch a 70.3, and again, or go and actually not just a 70.3, if you don't have a 70.3 in your area or whatever, go and watch a try. Just go and watch a try. You're going to see people of all ages, people of all shapes and sizes, and genuinely, like, I remember one of the first times when I went to Roth, and there's like 5,000 athletes, and like some of them look like athletes, some of them don't look like athletes. Sometimes it's the ones that don't look like athletes that are really kicking it out there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like they're ordinary people, and this is it. You don't, I mean, there's nothing extraordinary about me. I'm just an ordinary person like anybody else. And as long as you're willing to put yourself out there, that's all you need to do. And no matter what distance you do, you are a triathlete and you do belong in that community. And even if you start off with a relay, if the swim scares you, and I get why I can understand that. In Hamburg, for the first time, despite the good swim that I had a panic in the water. So I do understand where people are coming from with that. Find somebody else to do the swim for you. If you can't run, find somebody else to do the run. There's a lot of fun in the relay.
Yeah.
And then you can cross the finish line together. It's quite an achievement to share with other people. And you're not any less of a triathlete just because you've only done one or two legs. And you still get to experience it. So you are a triathlete no matter what distance you do or how you do it. Just get into the sport, or a sport. Just find what you enjoy, what's going to get you out that door on a day where you have no motivation, because there's going to be lots of days where you have no motivation, like for example, probably me tomorrow morning, when I don't want to get up and go and ride my bike. So you need to find a sport that you connect with and people you connect with, so it gets you out the door.
I strongly echo that. And you just cruise, it's your journey. So where can people follow your journey, Mel? What's the best way?
That's I mean, you can you know, I'm online. I'm fairly active on social media. It's not always triathlon content. I
It's
have to
behind
admit.
the scenes content that everyone, the juice. Yeah.
You know, you can follow me online. And you know, if anybody has any questions on triathlon, especially here in the UAE, just ask me a question. If I haven't got the answer, I will try and find the answer, or point you in the right direction. And for anyone in the UAE, especially if they don't know where to start, or you know, whatever questions you might have about the sport in this country in particular, you know, I dare I say I'm probably the right person to talk to, at least to get you started, and you know, tell you a little bit about the tri scene, here.
Thank you so much, Coach Mel, for sharing your insights and experiences. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in the Hybrid Zone. And to our listeners, stay tuned for more episodes where strength meets endurance.